Hello guys, welcome back to another Code and Create session. I hope everyone is safe and well. This is episode 2 of Code and Create with Orbis Connect. So what we're looking to do every Wednesday is get some experts in the sort of technology field to come in and talk to us about different scenario situations across technology, be it front end, back end, different speaker every week. So we're looking to try and keep it different. This week we've got George, who is technical lead at John Lewis. Some of you may have tuned into our Battle of the Frameworks event a few weeks ago, which is really good. George was actually involved with that, so we know George well. So excited to see his presentation today. He's going to be discussing how to build reusable React components with CMS driven. So yeah, really excited for this one. We'll be doing a Q&A session as always at the end. So if you're watching this live, then please get your questions in for George, which we'll get round to at the end. We'll try and get round to as many questions as we can. If you're on Crowdcast, there's a Ask a Question tab below, which you can add in your questions to. And if you're on LinkedIn, just add it in the comments if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, and we'll try and get round to as many as we can at the end. I promise. We'll try and keep it within the hour, and yeah, we'll go from there. So yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from as well. Actually, in the chat box, it's always nice to see where people are watching from. So without further ado, I will pass you over to George. If you all give me 1 second. Hello, George.
Hi.
How are you?
How's it going? Very good, very good.
Good. I'll let you crack on, George. Just let me know when you want me to focus your presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think now is going to be a good time.
Now, yeah, cool. I'll let you crack on.
Thank you. So, hi all. My name is Georgiadis. I'm based in London. I have worked for many companies such as John Lewis, Metrobank, GiftGaff, Quidco, Utility Warehouse, Game Analytics, and more. Additionally, I'm the founder of CMS Driven, the only CMS tool for React application. It's a very niche product. Welcome to my presentation, and we are going to talk about how you can write a reusable React component using this tool. First of all, let's start from the basics. What is a component? A component is the building block of a React app. A typical React app have many of these. And to put it simply, a component is a JavaScript class or a function that accepts inputs and returns a React element that describes how a section of the UI should appear. Now, a component consists of 2 parts. The first part is how it looks, the UI, and the second is how it works. This is what we call the user experience or UX. Now, if you gather all your UI components of an app into one package or module, then this is what we call UI component library. Now we have 2 options depending how we want to break the components down. Some people, they break them down to every single item. So you can break them down to the smaller components like buttons, radio buttons, inputs, or you can break them down to block elements. Now, a block element is usually a combination of 2 or more smaller components. If you decide to break down your components into smaller items possible, the buttons that we talked before, you will realize very quickly that there are some pros and cons. The good thing about it is that your component behaves predictable, and you can test the UI using Zest snapshots, for example. This way, you can be assured that you cannot break anything to your app, or at least as much as possible assured. Now, some cons, if you take this approach. One of them is it takes a lot of effort to code all the possible states of your buttons. Think about focus, on not focus, hover, not hover, disabled, you name it, you have it. There are too many states out there. You have to do all of them using a component. You have to code them, or you can just write different CSS classes and you can use them to your code. So it's up to you. But again, if you took the opportunity to create a component library, so you create a component for each of your smaller atoms, then this is a time-consuming and it's going to take a lot of time for you to develop all of this. Plus, you may find a little bit difficult if a new framework come in, let's say the X new framework. It's going to be difficult for you to just remove the CSS because you build the CSS inside of this component, especially if you use the CSS in JS approach, where you just you use something like style components, where this NPM module is only working well with React. So in this case, you bind yourself with the technology. And the fourth element here is that you essentially create another layer on top of the native button. So if you have a button in HTML, you just create another element on top of this. And you essentially, when you create layers, you want to create them because you have some business logic that is custom. You don't want just to pass a click, on-click callback down to the native API. It's pointless. So let's face it, we use in a fast-paced environment where everything changes so quickly. And we have not seen so many changes since CSS came into the game from 1996, where we see every year something changes with React. And React, Angular, Vue, or any other framework, Backbone, or anything that technology is coming and go very quickly. And so if you take the approach of writing things in CSS, in pure CSS, and host it in a different NPM module, and you can reuse this across all your projects, and maybe you can reuse this for your new projects later on, maybe after 2-3 years time. React maybe is not going to be the most popular library in 3 years time from now. So you might want to just keep the CSS and the styling separate to a different package. But there are some reasons why people choose to go with a CSS in JS instead of writing a CSS. Some of these reasons are, first of all, CSS in JS automatically creates a namespaced style, so you don't need to create these BEM annotations. So you don't want to write the CSS in this. It takes a lot of time to think about namespacing and how you are going to put your name conventions. Where with CSS in JS, it comes out of the box. And another reason is you can get reduced file size of your library because you have a CSS, only the CSS that is used going forward to the production. So you get some benefits, but it's up to your team to decide. And you have to make this choice depending on your circumstances. There is no better approach here because some projects might require a common style guide to be built where you can share it with different projects that they are in different technologies. Maybe you have a PHP in your project, and maybe you have a JavaScript written in React, and then you have another smaller project written in Vue. And you want your users to be able to recognize all the projects as one brand. You don't want people to believe that they are landing in different pages that belongs in the different domains. You want them to believe that is one unique experience, user experience and UI experience. So in this case, it makes sense for you to create a different CSS library where you potentially have something like a KSS. KSS is a tool that generates from annotations you put your CSS code a style guide, a living style guide where you can have your typography, you can have your buttons. I will show you in a bit. So this is one approach, but sometimes it makes even sense to lock into one technology because you can get all these nice benefits that we talked before, like reduced size, namespacing, and more. But if you do this, you have to be conscious about that you are locked in the one technology. And okay, sometimes maybe makes sense when you want to change your technology, if you want to move from React to something new, to a new framework, maybe your style guide is also too old. Is also old. Maybe your style guide after 3 years time from now is going to need a full rewrite, maybe a fresh look. So it all depends on your personal circumstances here. Let's see how a style guide looks like. So this is a style guide created by KSS. So with the annotations we talked about before. So you can see clearly there is a typography. There are the branding colors there. We have the buttons, all the states of the buttons. And this is just behind of this, there is no an actual UI component. It's only CSS. So the primary button is going to have the primary CSS classes. The typography is going to just mention H1, H2, H3. So it's not binding to any technology. It's just living there independently. This is your style guide, and you can just change the style guide and not necessarily change your behavior. So as we said before, there is a UI and a UX. So the UX is more about what React is going to do. The UI is how it looks. It's like the facade is how it looks only, but nothing behind the scenes is not how it works. It's just the states, and then there is a JavaScript code behind the scenes that exchange this UI states. Now, if you go with the approach of building every single atom to a component, then my suggestion is use something called Storybook. So Storybook is an open source tool for developing UI components in isolation. And it works with React, Vue, and Angular. It makes building stunning UI organized and efficient. So Storybook, it builds everything in a sandbox. So you can put props and you expect a different output. So it works as a single source of truth. And it's the only place your whole team can get engaged. So UI, UX, product owners, developers, testers, everybody can be under one product, one tool, that they can realize that this component is called charts, for example. And okay, if we have already a component called charts, we can use and reuse this one to our next page. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to create another component called something different. You have a common ground. You have one source of truth. You know your components. You know all of the states of your components. And then you can take a decision on your design, on new designs, what to use. And developers, they can communicate with you, and you can say things like, can you use the charts component? And they say, okay, yeah, that's fine. I will use the charts component. We have already built it. So it's a common understanding between the teams. Now, let's talk about where you should host your UI component library. Let's say you created a UI component library, even if it's a Storybook, we're using a Storybook or using a KSS. So even if you build it in a CSS only, or if you build it in with React components for every single item, you can decide now if you want to move the component library outside of your project or keep it inside internally for a certain period. So even if it looks obvious path to go to just move it around, to move it outside to a different NPM module, it might not be the best way to start off. The reason is simple. When you start your first UI component library, and the only consumer of this library is one project only, let's say this is for the next 6 months, you know that it's going to be only one project now, and maybe after 1 year is going to come another project in the team. So if you remove the UI component with this assumption to a different outside project, your main consumer project will have to handle versioning, a lot of Git commits, Git pushes. You're going to take, you need to take the latest version for your consumer. You will realize very quickly that maybe the component you built in the first place, it doesn't really match with the other components. Okay, now maybe I have to make it a little bit bigger to be consistent with the other components, because there is this issue. When you build your components in isolation, you don't necessarily know if you put them together, if it's going to make any sense, if they are going to fit. Maybe your form element, input element, and the button element, it looks perfectly fine in isolation, but when you put them together, maybe they don't just actually fit. So you have to come down to this solution initially to start with one project and the component library all living together, and then extract at some point when a new project coming in and say, we want to reuse your UI component library. Okay, that's fine. But the way you're building your UI component inside to the project must be in a way, and always you have to think about that it needs to be without hard dependencies within your project. You need to always remember that at some point I can take it out and put it to another NPM module. So this is the live documentation, how it looks on CMS Driven. So I will show you a little bit later on how this works. But let's start talking about some issues of the teams, of development teams. First of all, there is an issue that developers don't like to make content changes. And it will be great if there is a way developers only focus on more complicated stuff, like building UI components, and leave the content changes to not technical people. You, as a product owner, take a lot of time of your team just to give them to do content changes or build a new page and just put the existing page, components there. So I think it needs to be a better way to do this, and actually it is, and I'm going to explain later on how you can handle this issue. The second thing is, it takes a lot of time for every single change to be merged. We have this rule of 2 thumbs up, and 2 people needs to review the code. And if you think about it, it's a very good approach. But what about if you want just to make a content change? It doesn't really make sense if you just change the content to have 2 people to review the code. You just waste so much time of everybody, and you need to create a CI/CD. Some companies, they even do dispensation forms. People have to sign up some forms, like maybe some like a fintech companies, they want everything to pass through a security. I think even for small content changes, in some businesses taking a lot of time to do. And yeah, so the other thing is, there are two levels of people in every company. There are CTOs, tech leads, developers, the technical people, and there are the non-technical people, product owners, copywriters, UI, UX designers. And we do not understand each other. I think that not product owners and not technical people in general, they want things to be delivered fast and without bugs. And what we want only to do is just build a UI reusable component library with the best practices, write very nice code. So we want to do things with quality, but doing things in quality, always putting down the speed. And we have to do something about this. And it was a big problem for my teams the last years. And that's why I developed the tool, the CMS-driven tool. So my problem was it was taking a lot of time to do simple stuff like create a router, creating a page component, putting the components in order, change the content in every component, and even business logic, right? So you create a business logic, you say if age is greater than 30, and all of this stuff are hard-coded to the page. If you want to change if age is greater than 50 in your forms, you cannot just simply doing this. So I create this tool to fix all of these issues. So in the long term, my tool is going to save a lot of time. And I will show you right now. So here's the thing: we building complicated UI. We building very complicated UI and UX journeys. So we need something else that from what we do today. So we want to build component libraries and UI components as Legos. So we want to just build a UI library, and then somebody else can place these components to a page. So imagine that you can just build the component library, but not the final product. And somebody else in the team, maybe the product owner, can just use these component React elements and place them to a new page that he just created. So let me show you now. This is us after we are happy. Let me show you right now how this can happen. So let's start from here. This is the CMS driven. So this is the tool, is an online software as a service. And if we start, first of all, let's start about, this is the page, okay? This is one page that I'm running now with my terminal. So this is my page. This is my code base at the moment. This could be your code base. It's just a boilerplate just to start off. If you want to start off later on playing with this, you can download this boilerplate and you can build something. So by default, it comes with some components just for just an example component. But in the end, you will have to build your own components. It's up to you. You have to build your own component library because it needs to match with your UI UX designs, and you have to build your own business logic. So let's just see very quickly. I have a hero component. A hero component is straightforward a React component. Nothing really special here. It's just using Material UI for some of the typography, grid, buttons. You can use anything. You can use Material UI. You can use your own styles. It doesn't really make any difference. The main point here is me, instead of hard coding my title and my content, I just used props. So I use props.title. And they're here.
George, sorry to interrupt. Are you able to maybe focus on your screen, maybe zoom in slightly on the code? It's just gone slightly blurry there.
Fine, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. So as we can see here, we using on the paragraph this statement, this dangerous set inner HTML, it's nothing to worry about if you do it if you are conscious about it, if you know that what this is doing. So this gives the opportunity to put an HTML inside to your component. And I intentionally use this one because the paragraph, I want to have a little bit more flexibility on the paragraph, but it's up to you. If you don't want to use this at all, you can just use the props as strings. So here we have a title, a paragraph, and 2 CTA buttons. Okay, so we have a component. We built the component ourselves. We have the props, and now we are going to register the component in the component library. So I'm going to just show you right now. This is just the example component library. It has the hero the hero component. So this is the hero component that we see here. So I already registered this before, but we can have a look. So this is how it looks like. There is a title, a paragraph, and the buttons. So what I did here is I connect my storybook with CMS driven. So in this way, I can interact live with the real component. This is not just an image, this is the real component. And your UI UX team, product owners, everybody can come here and have a look on what are those components that they can reuse, and play with them and have a look how they interact with them. So let's see what is the hero component. The hero component now is a component with a title, paragraph, first CTA, and second CTA. So I have to register the props of this component here. So the CMS driven now knows that there is a title, paragraph, first CTA, and second CTA as a props of this component. What I can do with this now, I can go to the pages, and I can create a new page, and I'm going to call this page just London at the moment. So I'm in the local environment, London, and I'm going to name the title London. Let's just put meta description just for simplicity, meta keywords for SEO, London, comma, something else, and then I save the page. Now, what I can do, I created a page dynamically. I didn't have to create a router. I didn't have to create a page wrapper element where I have to put my components inside. What I can do, I can just import now from my component library a hero component. And after I put the hero component, I can edit the props. Look now what is happening here. The props, like the title, paragraph, and second CTA and first CTA, automatically converted to forms that a non-technical person can even change here. So I can say here, welcome. I'm not supposed to be technical now. I'm just say welcome to the form. I can say this is my paragraph, and I can even now, because this is a rich text element, I can even change the color of the paragraph. I can make this bolder, and I will say here, this is the first CTA, this is going to be demo, and the second will be learn more. Okay, so after save this, I have a live presentation of my React component in here. So I didn't even have to deploy it anywhere. I'm not technical now. I'm just playing around with the component. I change attributes of the component, the props of the component. And if I click live preview, I'm going to be able to see my component live here as a block element with my props. So what I can do now, I can see that it doesn't fit very well with the top. Maybe I need a little bit more padding around. What I can do, normally, I will have to ask a developer. If I'm a product owner, I have to ask a developer, can you make this change? But obviously, the styles internally of your component, it's up to developer. But around the component, you can even override them yourself. So I can do something like this. But this now depends on the technical level of maybe you don't want to allow them to do this. This is up to the team. But what I'm saying here is even a developer can come here very quickly and do a change only to the instance. So as you can see now, this refreshes automatically. And I just move it down a bit. So now I can have a real preview of my component. Let's add another one. So we can even add now the product list. Just for simplicity, because I have some real data now, I don't want to fill out all the data. I will just take you back to another page where I pre-populate the data, and this is the store page. So again, the URLs coming dynamically at runtime. You don't have to hard code them anymore. And this is the page. I have put the first hero component element, and secondly, I put the product. This is the store. Let me go there. And the second is the product list. So product list, as we can see here on the components, is just a pure component where it just loops through the product component. It is using map. And the product component, it have an image, a title, a CTA. So as we can see here, let me just come here. It has an image, a title, a paragraph, and a CTA. So when you click to this, it's supposed to take you somewhere. And now let's see something interesting here. Because we have an array, as you can see here, we have this map. We have this map, an array of products on the props. Automatically, CMS-driven recognize that this is an array, and it says products here. And then it creates a button with a name, add new product. So what is going to happen now, if I click this button, it's going to create automatically another object, another product, and I can name this now, and automatically takes a copy of the latest product, so it can give you some hints. So I can say smartwatch 2, just to differentiate this. And after clicking save, I can come here and refresh, and now we get another product. So as you see, the responsiveness came normally because the responsiveness was an issue of as a developer. As a developer, I create the component to be responsive, no matter if it has one product or 10 products. And I left back to the product owner to decide and create using these nice forms, easy to use forms for a non-technical person. And now they can just use these forms to generate the content and the model of your website. And as you can see here, even the image, I can just choose another image from here. What is happening when I choose an image is they can upload an image using the CMS-driven tool. This comes back to a CDN, which is a service provided with the CMS-driven. So you don't have to go through FileStack or any other service to use for CDN. So you can upload your image, it comes to a CDN, and automatically comes to the if you see right now, I know it's a little bit difficult with this font. As you can see here, automatically comes to the props. So let me show you on the code. On the props, we have props image. And this image now can go to the SRC and automatically pre-populate it to the page. So you don't have to do anything to store your images. You just import them from here and automatically populate it and coming to your page. You can do many other things. You can now reorder the components. You can put this product list on top and you can put the hero under it. You can even come and delete one of them. So because there is something called feature toggle. So you can delete a feature from your page. It's very necessary, like you have to do it very quickly. Sometimes you get this really extreme scenarios when you have to remove something from a page very quickly, or you have to even remove the page itself. and you don't want to create a git commits and git, you might create this component, you post it to live, but it doesn't mean you necessarily want to use it to the page. So you can change things to the page at runtime without you have to wait a long time until you go live. And as a last part here to the presentation, I want to show you something very quickly. CMS Driven works very well with multiple environments, and it supports your needs because it's built by developer for developers, right? So I really understand the needs of a technical team. I really understand that you might want to have a local, a staging, a production, or you might want to name local and production directly. So it's up to you to create your pipelines. The difference is you can just give different permissions. You can say that action only admin can publish, and local and staging anybody can publish. So you can have your team deploying to staging the content changes, and you can only be able to push it to live after a final check. Again, CMS Driven is the model and the content of your application. Your source code is separate. Your source code is with you. You are having a full flexibility to use Redux, a context API, anything you want. You can use styled components, or you can use your CSS library, and you can deploy your products to anywhere you want. You want to deploy it to Netlify, you want to deploy it to ZNow or S3 bucket, anywhere you want to deploy it, it's up to you. The code lives with you, the content lives with the CMS Driven and the model of the pages. And that's it from me at the moment. Now let's pass to the questions.
Cool. That was great. Thanks, George. So yeah, let's get to the questions then. I think we've got four questions here so far. So let's start with the question from Gray. Is this not the problem that web components were designed to solve? What is your opinion of just using the platform rather than specific frameworks, React, Angular, Vue, etc.?
Yeah. So you're still using your components. You still so I believe that the misunderstanding here is that the web components they are going to replace all these specific libraries. They're going to replace the React, Angular, Vue, something that is unified. So this is a little bit different topic. This specific tool works at the moment only with React. So you are going to have your own project as you did before. You are going to still develop your components with your React technology. The difference here, the key difference is you don't have to create router elements. You don't have to create the page components, and you don't have to deploy them to create a new page. So the difference is you can create pages dynamically at runtime without the need of a developer. And don't misunderstand me, developers are still needed, obviously. We're still going to have a lot of work. It's just we're not going to be focusing on simple stuff like this, where we can put our focus to more complicated stuff. It's just a matter where you put your focus. You can give a little bit more flexibility to the product team to build a project, to create a new pages at runtime, and reuse some of your components. And you can focus on more complicated stuff. So it's about when do you create the pages at runtime, and you reuse the components at runtime, and it saves you a lot of time because you don't have now to hard code all of the stuff on your page. You don't have to hard code your content, and that's it. Yeah, so it's a little bit different. The question, I think sometimes people misunderstand the concept of the tool itself, and I think I want to make it clear that I don't provide any component library. I provide the tool for you to build your component library and reuse your components to a dynamically created page. I hope I covered this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good answer. I think that covered that well.
If you have more questions, you can find me later on, and we can discuss. Just in case if I didn't cover you, we can discuss it offline later on after the meeting.
Yeah, after the event, we'll put out all the links and information.
I'm happy to answer everybody's question even after the meeting, so you can come to me. Do we have another one?
Yeah, we've got a few more here, George. So the next question is we got in from Kate. So, can CMS Driven work with Context API, Redux, and other technologies? And can you install it to your existing project?
Yes. So first of all, yes. The answer is yes. You can use anything you want, because the way it's built is it's a tool that supports all your needs. So it's not a CMS in the traditional way. It's a CMS tool installed as an npm package, so you can still have your own code base. You just don't have, and also can work alongside with your existing pages. So you can have a static created pages, and then you can have hard-coded pages, and then you can have some dynamically created pages at the same time, and you can work side by side. So you can do anything you want. You can use Context API, Redux, or style components, anything you want. You can use Storybook, you can use Webpack. It doesn't really matter. So CMS Driven is coming as an npm module that connects through the routing element of your application, and then it takes over the routing. And this is how it works. Actually, it's taking over the routing, and is more specifically is leverage the catch-all routing. So if it doesn't find anything in your hard-coded pages, try to find the pages from the CMS Driven platform, and if it finds something, it constructs the page at runtime. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, George. I think that answers Kate's question well. So I've got a few more questions here, George. Should I change anything on my components to make them compatible with CMS Driven?
No, you don't have to make any changes. So all your components are by default compatible with the CMS Driven tool. So your components are, you don't have actually to do any change. Only thing you have to do is to register them through the platform. So you have to go to the platform and register your components and the props of your components, and you are ready to go. You don't need to change even a single line of the code internally.
And that's what you showed earlier, wasn't it? The yeah, cool. Excellent. Right. So I think one more question, George. Should I change anything on my components to make them compatible with CMS Driven? Did we answer that?
Oh yeah, we answered this one just now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah. So that is the end of the Q&A. Thank you again, George. That was really good. Really appreciate you joining us again for the second time in about a month. And yeah, like George mentioned earlier, there's going to be links and information from George's presentation available. He's going to share his details as well, so anyone can get in touch, ask him any questions that you've got on his presentation or CMS Driven. George is always happy to engage in those conversations. So we'll make sure that we put all the links and information up either on our LinkedIn page or our meetup page, Orbis Connect. So make sure you're following us to get all that info, and obviously for future events as well. So yeah, again, massive thanks to George.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, stay safe, guys, and we'll see you soon. Cheers, George.
Thank you. Bye, guys.